In this video, let's talk about testing, which is arguably the most tedious and boring thing that engineers have to deal with, even the traditional engineers like I used to be when I was actually writing code by hand, like this, just like this with two fingers. No, not like that, but was writing code by hand, and then that was exciting, but the opposite of that, the unexciting part was like, does it work? Yeah, you kind of do a little test, little use case, and just make sure does the code pass the basic use case, and then you're like, oh, it works. And then of course the code would fail. So the evolution of an engineer from a junior engineer to a mid-level engineer is development of a taste, a refined taste for testing, because testing is tedious, but having bugs is worse. So then you start appreciating testing. And what I want to talk about in this video is approximately how to test your AI coding agent's work so that it's not a totally gigantic test, but at least some test. Because if you work for a bigger company, of course, you'll have a testing team, testing plans. Most people will not go to that extent. So let's talk about how to mitigate. The least you can do is, first of all, launch your next feature and launch in iterations, so one small feature at a time, then test on your development environment, then release that onto your staging environment, then release that later, if it all is working, on your production environment, so that you can test before you launch to clients on your development environment, then staging environment. Staging is like the live version, live replica of the live environment, but it's not something that clients see until you push that to what the clients see. So it's really a three-step process. If you're small time and just kind of developing things for yourself and you don't have many clients, you could skip that middle part and just go test on your development environment. Good enough. And release to clients. If they find bugs, whoopsie daisy. So, but as you start getting clients and actual website traffic or traffic to whatever you're building, you cannot go like, whoopsie daisy, bug. They found it, they told me about it, I'll fix it. The users cannot be turned into your testers. So how do you test? If you don't have a comprehensive test plan with written out test cases, you start with your basic use case. Like, you press a button, does the software or tool that the AI made for you do whatever is supposed to happen? Great. Then you want to test edge cases and other situations. Like, for example, I'm currently building an authentication system for a software where if a person logs in, they're going to get taken to a page where they have to pay. And then if they pay, okay, great, they get taken to the tool. Fantastic, right? But there are so many nuances. Well, what if they pay for 1 month, but what happens on the 31st day? Does the system give them the right error messaging? Is error messaging cryptic or clear? What happens if they run into some other limitations, like maybe some use cases that he used, but there was a limit, like the tool I'm building allows people to send a certain number of emails out to potential clients per month. But what if they finish that? What if they unsubscribed early? Those are all the other cases that you have to test. And if you don't test that as you're building this, if your system does not pass this and you go beyond it, well, now you're working from a piece of software where you don't know that there maybe are some bugs. And when you don't know if there are bugs, believe me, probably there are some bugs, because the amount of if this then that, if this then that, if the client has a license, if they don't have a license, if they have a paid account, if they don't have a paid account, is it expired? Did they get a refund? Did they get a discount? So many possibilities that if you don't test all or most of them to your best ability, not just the basic use case, can they log in? Do they get the screen? Can they go? That's the basic use case. But you got to go beyond that, because if you don't go beyond that, then what's going to happen is as you build on top of this, it's fun to develop and have your ideas become reality. But what's going to end up happening is if there are bugs down the line, it's going to be, and if the AI starts hallucinating, telling you, oh, the bug is because of this, but really it's something else, it will be more difficult to debug that, because you won't be certain when you tell the AI, hey, this authentication and login part works. So don't try to debug there. Debug the new piece of code that you wrote. But if you haven't tested that, you can tell the AI, hey, it works, but it's actually not necessarily true, because nobody knows that it's true. Nobody knows that whether it totally works, because it wasn't tested before. That's why you don't just build a little bit, do a little test, move on. You build a little bit, do a thorough test, which is annoying, I know, but you do that one. And then you move on when you're certain. Because if you accumulate 1 feature, 2 feature, okay, that's manageable. But when you get to 15 features, then you don't know what's going on and where the bugs might come from. And then you might really get to a moment where the AI was telling you one thing, and you are going to have a hard time directing it to where to look exactly. You might have hunches, but you won't be certain, right? You don't want to assume, you want to know facts. And that's why that more extensive testing is the evolution that all coders, AI-based coders, coders by hand with the 2 fingers, all of us have to go through that phase and add that discipline to our projects.